What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Made You a Mixtape podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Welcome to the show. It is podcast inception day here on Made You a Mixtape because our guest today is none other than co-host of Playlist Wars, Alex Gomez. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Jason. Thank you for having me on here. I'm kind of excited. First true interview, actually.
Nice. Now, first things first, to our listeners, if you haven't listened to Playlist Wars yet, after this interview, okay, listen to this whole thing first, and then don't stop now. Listen to the whole thing first, then go listen to Playlist Wars, because it is probably the most fun podcast I've had a chance to listen to. It is so much fun, but I'm going to let Alex describe what Playlist Wars is.
So Playlist Wars is me and my best friend, Brian. We've known each other for over 27 years now. He was part of another podcast, and I had an injury back in October. Where I hurt my knee and I was out of work for a little bit, and I was tossing some ideas around about doing a podcast. Me being a sports fanatic, a movie fanatic, and a video game fanatic, I was thinking about going that way. And I threw Brian, I pitched him an idea about a podcast, and he goes, I got another idea. His idea was, why don't we do something that no one's really doing? And I said, what? And I asked him what it was. He goes, we pick our best top 10 soundtrack or top 10 tracks, from each kind of band or musical artist. And I said, that's actually a really good niche. And we started toying with the idea a few months back, and we started recording. Our very first episode was Metallica. And our buddy, that was not an easy one. It was a lot of fun though. And it was supposed to be our three best friends, but then our other friend, unfortunately, with work, had a lot of conflict and could not make the show. So we decided to do special guests. And, our buddy Jay, he's a drummer with actually Brian Colburn and company, with Brian's band. He plays drums for him. And we actually had one of our friends who's a good comedian, Sean Morton, down here in Jersey. Also, we had the drummer from Tantric, John Laurie. We just had Rob Fasletti from Bully for Soup just past week, which is going to be airing in like 2 weeks. So we just had some awesome guests, and people are contacting us like out of the blue. We're a very young podcast, but Brian has many experience, and it just became a thing. He has his top 10. I'll have my top 10, and the special guests will have their top 10, and we'll just compare notes. Brian is a true music nerd. He loves his music. He knows the history of music very well. Where I'm a music fan, but I'm mostly I buy the CDs, I listen to a couple of tracks here and there, and then I just pick my favorites. And where our special guest is either a musical guest now, like we had two already in the past, or some other podcasts are coming on. Other people from podcasts are coming on. We're actually going to have you soon, actually.
I'm looking forward to it. I agonized through my list, but I think you're going to enjoy this one.
Yeah, I think we are. We're looking forward to it. We're actually going to be putting you on season 2.
Oh, excellent.
So season 1 is going to be ending for us in August. So we decided to do seasons because we were talking about doing it for a full year. Then we're going to announce the winners of the 1 year. But someone threw a comment saying, why don't you do seasons? So what is a TV episode season is? 22 episodes. So on our 23rd episode, where we end the season, will be me and Brian commenting the wins on who's got what. Some of them are a lot closer than we expected, and some of them I'm blowing him out of the water and he's blowing me out of the water. And the special guest is blowing both of us out of the water. And it's fun.
I guess the big question too is, when it comes to just listening to a song, so like, what is it for you? Like, what is it that catches you with a song?
I relate it to my life a little bit. There's a few songs, like when we go later on, as we talk about my how do I introduce myself to a track. I'll explain a little bit, but what I listen to is something that I'm listening to the music, and it's got to catch me a little bit. But I try to incorporate something in my life that happened. Maybe some songs like Linkin Park is a great one. Tom Petty, Metallica actually had a couple. I try to convince myself, hey, you had a life experience somehow with one of these songs. Maybe you were driving too fast, you got pulled over, something like that, and you incorporate it with it. But I'm a video gamer, I love playing my video games, and I also watch a lot of movies. So I convert it to the soundtracks. Hey, like this was in this movie, and this was in this video game. So I try to pinpoint the stuff that I truly love, like Brian does. Like he'll explain the whole song to us much better than we can, but I'll just put my twist in it with the movies and the video games and my personal experiences and what I feel for that song.
And that's kind of the really nice thing about Playlist Wars is that the two of you and Brian, have this just natural banter between the two of you. And it's almost like, as much as a podcast is supposed to be a conversation, yours is more like a welcoming conversation. Like you just, joined a group of friends and you're welcome into it. So let's talk about that first. Like how long have you guys known each other? Like, that whole backstory.
Wow. That backstory goes back to almost 1994. Brian was a senior at a high school that I was looking at. I was going to the grammar school. It's called St. Mary's back in Rutherford. He was in the high school. I was in grammar school. So it was a day off for me for school, from grammar school to go visit the high school. I was paired up with Brian, and he was my senior buddy for the day. And Brian and I, we were talking about football, and then he was talking about video games. So was I. And we just clicked. So after he graduated, I went to St. Mary's, and he went to Catawba College. And we kept in touch through Instant Messenger, or at that time, AOL.
Oh, geez. I can hear the dial tone on the modem.
Exactly. We would talk, catching up, see how's practice going. I'll ask how his season goes. He was asking me how I was playing. And, we became great friends after college. He moved back up to Jersey. He was a couple years older than me, not by much, but at that time we looked like twin brothers. So we ended up saying we're like family at that point. We're almost 10 years into a friendship right there. It just felt like he was my brother. We knew each other very well. Brian is a true musician. He plays bass. So I went to a lot of his shows. I supported him a lot of things that he always did. And, whatever I did at high school, he would come and visit. He would watch our games. I also did drama clubs, so he came and made fun of me a couple times on some of my shows that I did. But it was just a great friendship. And as we've gotten older, we've gotten tighter. He's very close to my family. I'm very close to his family. We're very close to each other. I was in his wedding. He was the best man in my wedding. It just 27 years of friendship, family, that was important to me with him. And we didn't have any brothers or sisters, so we always consider each other brothers. And, truly, truly awesome guy, great musician. He played bass throughout the whole time, and I know he could play guitar, and I think he could do drums too. He's a true musician.
Oh, he's one of those stupid talented ones that can play anything he picks up, isn't he?
And he can sing too. He's a natural singer. Yeah, he's very good. I
hate him already.
No, I'll tell you, we used to do a karaoke together a lot, and I always had to go after him. So I would have to bring 2 beers before I go up and sing, where he was just naturally good. And his one go-to is Naughty by Nature OPP. And let me tell you, he could sing the heck out of that song.
I'm just trying to picture how that would go over a karaoke, and I already want to see that.
It went very well, because in Jersey, it's a Jersey group, so it's one of those things that he does it very well, and it's very receptive.
Now, so when it comes time to sit down and go through like the full catalog of whatever artists, and some of the artists that you guys have already covered, you've covered Tom Petty, you covered Metallica, you covered Weird Al Yankovic, which that was a fun one. That was just
that was a lot of fun.
So what's your weed down process? Like, what, do you go through, make an initial cut down list, and then have to fight your way through that?
No. So what we do is we, naturally, like say like yourself, you threw Anthrax at us, and we agree. You know what I mean? So we listen to other people who want to get on our show and say, hey, would you guys cover this guy or this guy? And we're like, oh no, we haven't yet. But if you want to be on the show, we're going to cover it. And that process for me, I don't have a problem with. We talk about it for a day or two, and then, or sometimes in 10 minutes, we just say, sure, let's just do it. We have fun with it. And I will it takes me a couple days, because I like to do my research. Like I said, I'm not musically, not challenged, but musically knowledgeable as Brian. So I had to do a little research for myself. And then I start going, all right, what movie was it in? What do I do? So I'll put in everything in my notebook, and then I type it out for our show. So where Brian and I don't know each other's lists whatsoever, so it's kind of a surprise when we talk about it, because sometimes we have what we call a trifecta, where the special guest, me and Brian, have the same song. And then we have the trifecta killer, which is usually Brian or myself or the special guest, where someone has 2 out of the 3 songs. But it's true love of what we're doing. We're very passionate, and some of the episodes, if you heard, Brian's very passionate of Tom Petty, for instance. He loves Tom Petty. And he's actually leading in Tom Petty, I think, right now as we're speaking. And, I love all types of music. I'm a hip hop guy. I like classical music. I like old school rock. I like new rock, modern rock. I like it all. Yes, I even like the techno and the dance club music. And, I like all types of music. And that's what draws, I think, both of us to the awesome way of what we're doing.
Now, seeing that you two have been friends for so long, you tend to usually have a good idea of kind of what the other person was like. Are there times when, one or the other of you kind of surprise the other with a pick out of the blue?
Yes, we have actually. A great sample was Eric Church. We did. That was our episode 2. Now I am getting into country slowly. I'm not a huge country fan. And when the idea with John Laurie from Tantric asked us to do Eric Church, I'm not very familiar. It's not in my wheelhouse, but I said, I'll do it. And I think I threw a deep cut, and both of them were like, wow, I was not expecting that out of you. And I just said, it was just a song that caught my ear. You know what I mean? It just was, it wasn't a hard rock song, but it also wasn't a power ballad either. It was just like a natural good song. And, once in a while, Brian pulls one out of the whim too. And so is our special guest. And it's like, wow, I didn't even think about that song. Or in that case, I'll throw in movie references. A good one was, I don't know if you heard the Motley Crue one.
I did.
And what did I do with Wild Side? I threw in an old 1980 movie, 80s movie, like Father Like Son with Kirk Cameron.
Oh, geez.
Yes. Well, that's exactly what they said too. And it was like, oh my God, who pulls a Kirk Cameron at a Motley Crue episode? I did.
Which I was very impressed with that. I sat there. It was a slow clap moment at that point.
I know. And it was, but you know what? It caught attention a little bit on Twitter. I'm like, who the heck does that? Well, I did,
But that's part of it too, is that it's sometimes surprising to see, where some of these artists have actually popped up. Like, you think about, the number of times Weird Al Yankovic has popped up in a movie, UHF aside, he has popped up in movies. Like I remember listening to the episode and I'm like, please say Spy Hard. Please say Spy Hard.
I wanted to, the problem is I wanted, when we were talking about Weird Al, I actually said I wasn't going to go movies at all because it's Weird Al. Mm-hmm. He stands out on his own. And Lauren on the Beard Owl podcast, let me tell you, she knows her stuff, and so did Brian. I think they were talking at one point in the show that they were at the same show, I think, and not knowing each other. And I went with a lot of the parodies, and I actually got a lot of awesome job Gomez because I picked Taco Grande. So, it's a great show. And I got to think about it. Like, if I'm somebody, how am I going to listen to the songs? Like, I got to figure out how to open it, what's in the middle, and what am I going to close with? So sometimes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, and that's actually one of the cool things about it is that as the listeners, sitting there listening to the list, especially if they themselves are invested into the artist, it's like, all of a sudden they start to kind of mentally go through their own list. And they, do you ever have people just kind of like after the episode is aired and all that, and people listen to it and go, well, where was this track?
Yeah. We actually had a couple of those already, especially Metallica, Tom Petty. And, and Brian and I do answer everyone, and we just tell them it's so hard. When you have a recording artist like a Tom Petty, a Metallica, Eric Church, Beastie Boys in that fact, when we did that episode, we just recorded 90s hip hop. You're talking a genre. 80s soundtrack was even hard for me. I had a lot more songs that I wanted to put on, and I just couldn't. And there was, if it was a 30 track list, I could have probably done it. But it is very difficult. It's like the deep cuts, the honorable mentions that we do talk about. It is hard to cut a song. I'm kind of known, as Brian kind of says it on the show, I'm kind of known to change it during the episode. My number 8, or I changed this, I changed that. And I'm known for that, where Brian was now known for his, the ongoing joke is his Christmas. We had the U2 episode where he brought a Christmas song. And I'm like, we were both like, why? But you know what? It worked for him. And that's what I love about us, what we do. And that's what I see everyone drawing towards, because of what we're saying, how passionate we are. And we're not arguing with each other. I mean, I hear other podcasts that, oh, no, this, no. It's straight up. I mean, we just did Weezer with Itch in the Rock podcast, or the Rock and the Itch podcast, with Aaron. And he had a heck of a time with us, because I threw a deep cut and they were not expecting that out of me. And actually, Brian just did a crossover with them, talking about Van Weezer and their 25th year anniversary and all that stuff. So for us to keep going on other podcasts is pretty cool. For me, this is actually would be my first interview live with you, but also my second podcast, or Zoom with somebody else without Brian, actually. So it's been kind of a new thing for me, which is kind of a cool little thing,
That's also something that I've noticed about you guys, is that the both of you are very supportive of the podcast community. Like pretty much every tweet out of you guys has been nothing but like community building, positivity, the whole works. Like what drives that for you guys?
Well, you know what it is? It's other people, sharing our podcast and talking about us as we like to do with them. There's a couple out there that I truly been watching. I just like when you asked me to come on your show, I started watching your material. So I started, if I'm able to, I'm going to start presenting you, you know what I mean? Saying, hey, you got to check this show out. It's unreal. As if you go and you came on our show and you're like, you can't believe how much fun I had at Playlist Wars. It's all about word of mouth for us. And, we're a very green podcast. We so far have recorded, I think, 19 episodes. We didn't know how well we were going to be recognized, you know what I mean? And the numbers that we were seeing were just phenomenal for our first season, or the first few months that we've been doing this. Brian's a very experienced podcaster. I am not. But Brian has helped me, groomed me, told me what not to say. And I noticed myself catching myself saying it sometimes, not realizing it. And he goes, hey, make a mental note. And he is very, very particular. And I like that, because he knows what he knows what he wants to do, and he knows how to do it. And that works for me, because I'll listen. And if I throw something at him and he's like, all right, that's cool, I love it, let's do it. We both throw each other the ideas, or we help out each other as much as we can. But that's what we want to do with the other podcasts. They're supporting us as much as we want to support them too. We want to make sure people know that they're out there, especially if they have 5,000 listeners already. But, maybe someone in New Jersey has never heard of them, and that's why we love to do it. And we support each other. We'll support everybody else who supports us. So it's about the positivity and all the love that we're getting, and we send it right back to them.
Now, with any kind of content creation, video makers, musicians, podcasters, the whole works, there comes, a point where you have to kind of balance real life with the amount of work that goes into creating the podcast. So how has that been for you? Like balancing, home life and then the creative outlet?
So home life and the creative outlet. So I will say this, my wife was very supportive of the idea when we started this. I was a little worried asking her, and she actually liked the idea, because, of course, during this pandemic, it's been difficult to go see people and hang out with friends. So when I pitched this idea to Brian, we made it work. I'm married. It's going to be 7 years this year, with 2 lovely children that I love dearly, and I can't live without them now, and balancing this and their life with my life with the podcast has been not easy, but I'm able to work it. So with my job that I work for 7 to 5, I come home, I cook dinner. We have somewhat of a set schedule with the kids, shower them, get them ready. And then we're by 7:30, hopefully in bed. Keyword, hopefully. Now it's summertime. It's a little bit difficult. But, my daughter had preschool. My son is now going to be turning a year old. So it's been a little bit challenging at times, but we've gotten through it. And
I was going to say, have they actually listened to the podcasts?
My daughter has not yet. I know Brian's daughters have. They're a little bit older than my daughter, and I know that they understand more. So she's excited that I am doing this, that she knows I'm talking about music, but it's not the music she loves. But we are going to be doing a Muppet episode soon, I think in season
amazing.
2. So she'll be listening to that probably a little bit. Because she loves the Muppets movie. She loves Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, and she's a huge fan of them. And Brian is a huge fan of the Muppets too. And so am I. So I grew up watching the Muppets, and that's going to be an episode we do. But luckily, with my wife too, she is a teacher, and she has sometimes to do some work, so I can sneak down into whatever's left of my man cave because I share it with the kids. I work on the music. I'll make my list, start doing my research. Sometimes when I have a 10-minute break at work, I'll just pop on really quick to Spotify, just listen to the track, maybe get a feel for it again, see if my notes match what I was listening to. And then by the time the show starts, I'm ready to go. And that's me. I'll have my research done with the movies, the video games. Sometimes I don't even say anything about it because I just don't feel like it's worth the movie. So it depends on how bad the movie is. Sometimes it doesn't. It shouldn't be mentioned. I mentioned a couple of times like a Scooby-Doo movie or something like that a couple of times, and everyone's like, "Oh, really?" But it became a custom because we're on a schedule, which is good. We record 8:00 at night like we started today, and we usually try to do about an hour and a half. Mostly an hour and a half. And then when we do our edit, it's an hour and 15 show. So we try to keep it where the listeners keep listening and keep the interest. And that's why this whole thing with Playlist Wars turned out to be I'm not surprised, but I'm really happy on the success that we're having with this show. And, we're hoping that it grows a little bit more. I'm hoping more people come on board with us and share their music interests and share some of their stories, especially musical bands, I hope, you know what I mean? Or even a celebrity. If it's a B-list, A-list celebrity, I would love it, just to say that would be an awesome accomplishment. But to have like John Laurie and Rob Fasoletti from Bowling for Soup and Tantric, it's been so cool and so real for me because I never thought I could reach a plateau like that.
Now, I do have to ask, because a lot of the anecdotes on the show come from, when you saw, so-and-so live. And, obviously the last year and a half, there hasn't been any live music. So how has that, as a music fan or even as a movie fan, not being able to go to the movie theater, how has this, last year and a half affected you?
It has. It hasn't really affected me too hard because, again, with now kids growing up, I can't go to the movies as much. I'm lucky if I buy it from Amazon now, and I'll get it from there. Or if Best Buy has it, I'll go to Best Buy and catch the flick. Or if someone says, "Hey, I really recommend you go to the movies." So before that happened, I would try to go to the movies once a month, catch whatever's out there and see what's going on. God, I forgot what was even the last movie I saw. Because of the pandemic, I can't even remember. But one movie I'm looking forward to is seeing is Fast 9. Because I grew up watching the Fast and the Furious. I was a huge Paul Walker fan. I'm a huge car guy too. I love cars. I wish I had an expensive car, but I don't. But one of the best franchise I always loved was the Fast and the Furious line, and I've been. I think I went to go see number 8 with my wife, actually, and number 7 too. Actually, I think I went back to back with her on opening nights. On those franchises. So it's been hard not to see movies this year. Luckily, HBO Max or Amazon or Hulu, they've been kind of bringing them on. So I've been trying to catch as much as I can when I can, if I'm not watching Disney Plus or Nick Jr. with my kids, So that's a time where I got to make sure I spend with them. And with music, the last time I went was right before the pandemic. I got to see STP at Stone Pony in Asbury Park.
Oh, nice.
And that was the first time I get to see Stone Temple Pilots without Scott Weiland, which was a little weird for me. But
the singer they have with them now is phenomenal.
Phenomenal. I thought it was. At one point, I would turn white as a ghost because Brian goes, "What is wrong?" I go, "My God, he sounds like Scott Weiland." And the notes he hit, everything he did was him, and it was like almost felt like a tribute to him.
I caught them at my wife and I like to go down to Rock on the Range down in Columbus every year, and they were there one year, and it was phenomenal. And it was interesting too because I never got to see them with Weiland, but I did get to see them with Chester Bennington. And as much as Chester Bennington is a phenomenal singer, there was just I don't know what it was. I just don't know what it was. It for some reason it was good, but just wasn't quite clicking. Now with their new singer, it is like all guns blazing.
I will say that I'm a huge Linkin Park fan. Another great band that I did listen to. I was so upset the day the band lost Chester, and excuse me, he was just to me was an inspirational singer, and so was that whole band. And I listened to that, and I'll explain a little bit more too as we go on. A couple of their songs have helped me in my life to get myself better and become the person who I am now. I'm enjoying my life. Everyone says you're getting old at 40. I'm 41, and I feel like I'm just getting younger, and I'm feeling better.
I'm turning 47 this year, so to hear that you're older 40, it's like, no, I'm there. I'm over the hill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over the hill, but I'm not allowing it. I'm still young at heart. I still feel like I still want to pretend like I'm a kid. I don't want to grow up. That's the old Toys R Us slogan.
Right.
I don't want to grow up because I don't want it to be where, I see some couples are very grumpy, and I don't want to be there. No. I want to enjoy life. You got to enjoy it because you know what? You never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
One of the interesting things is, when you're a fan of a band, right? And, the albums are coming out and it's all good. And then a member in the band changes, like a Stone Temple Pilots for whatever reason, whether they're out of the band or whether they pass away or whatever. So like, how much does it, as for you as a listener of the band, does it affect, you had the Motley Crue episode and, there was a lot of talk about when John Corabi was in the band. So how much, as a music fan, how much does it affect you when, the voice of the band changes?
When the voice of the band changes, to me, you just like lose something. When Stone Temple Pilots, when Scott Weiland left the first, or I don't remember how the whole story went, but when he left Stone Temple Pilots, it was Chester who came on, like you said, and somebody else I think came on too before. They had this phenomenal singer now that is on the band, and I'm like, I love Chester, you know what I mean? And all respect to him. And like you said, it just didn't feel right because Chester's voice is very distinctive. Mm-hmm. So for me, he fit the Linkin Park mold better than the Stone Temple Pilots mold. So when you listen to that and you're going, wow, what a difference. But you're still a fan of the band because they're putting out not just the same songs, but even the new lyrics with another singer. Mm-hmm. You're going, all right, it's good, but it's not there. You're missing sometimes that piece. Like in the Motley Crue episode, when we did that and you heard the difference. And, sometimes you don't realize that, as myself, as Linkin Park has not played since Chester died, I wonder what could have been.
Yeah.
What would the band have gone down with Chester gone? Have they gone on? I don't think they could have because he had that voice. Mike Shinoda was another great guy in the band, and he was, I think, mostly the co-writer of the songs with Chester. And I don't know if he had, I guess, the heart to do it anymore because his buddy is gone, which I get. And then when you look at, what's the one band right now I'm trying to think with Chris Cornell gone too? Soundgarden.
Soundgarden, yeah.
Soundgarden, when he left Soundgarden, then he did his own solo act for a little while. Another respectful singer too. I loved Chris Cornell's voice, And when he was in Soundgarden, it was just unreal. But ever since he went on his own and if he joined another band, he did this, you just felt his spirit of Soundgarden go with him. And, I pay a lot of respect to whatever they do. If that's what they need to do, that's what they got to do.
When someone in a band that you love passes away, how much does it affect you?
Ooh, that's a good question. With Linkin Park, it actually affected me a little harder than I expected, because I'm listening to some of the songs that got me through some hard times. As my father passed on in 2001, I was kind of lost, and a couple of their songs kind of lift me up, like One Step Closer. That was one of my favorite songs when they first came out. Brian was there a lot for me, and one of my old friends, my buddy Brad too, were there supporting me, helping me out on a long road of recovery. Because my dad was my brother, my best friend. My dad rolled up into one. I was an only child growing up, so for me, losing Chester to Linkin Park was really difficult because I grew to listen and love the songs and the band, even though they went. Even when people made fun of the later material, I still loved it because they were together and doing it. And, when they did What I've Done for the Transformers theme song for the first one.
Oh, that was a great song.
It was a phenomenal song. And the music video was even better. And just seeing Chester just singing and bolting out that song, it was great. And as, now I still listen to them and and I still wonder what could it be. Like Notorious B.I.G. is another one. One of my favorite hip hop artists too, growing up. And that's difficult because you're wondering what he could have been on a plateau. Like he was just reaching a potential that he didn't even realize what he had. And he was so young and his life was taken away too quickly. And Tupac Shakur is already there, but I wonder what it could have been. Could have collaborated? Could this East Coast, West Coast thing could have just ended with them? You know what I mean? Collaborating together saying, we're making it work. So there's a lot of maybes, and what ifs, and all that stuff. So it's difficult when you're hearing the music, but you got to remember the memories of what they did for the fans, for all the listeners. That's the key thing.
So let's take a look at young Alex for a second here. That initial love of music. Where does that come from?
For me, it was growing up because where I lived to begin, before I moved to Rutherford, there was not much going on. I was living in Clifton at the time, and it was a neighborhood that we lived really close to the highway. My parents were trying to get a better life for me where I could be with a lot of my friends. And at that point, music was actually kind of somewhat of a savior. Like Brian said in one of our episodes, how music has helped him along the way. It was like his reach, where music for me was something different. You know what I mean? I got into the music videos when MTV would play them.
Oh God. Yeah. It's the same up here with Much Music in Canada. It's like they used to play music.
Yeah. Now it's all reality shows, but one of my very first soundtracks, and everyone's probably going to make fun of me on this one, was the Ninja Turtle soundtrack of the 1990 movie.
Okay. Fair enough.
And, I remember I would ride my bike because I couldn't do much. It was a neighborhood that, I had a pizza joint, a deli, and not much around. And there was not a lot of kids. So my bike and my tape deck was my best friends at that point. So I would listen to the music, enjoy it, started singing. And that's, 1988, 89, something like that, 1990.
Yeah.
So that's where the music started to become more. I would listen more to the music than I did other things. You know what I mean? But that's where a lot of the love for the music came from. Back in the day.
Do you remember the first time that with your own money, like whether it was like birthday, Christmas money, small little part-time job, whatever, that you took your own money, went to the record store and bought an album for yourself? Do you remember which album that was?
Yes, I do. And actually, it was kind of funny you said that. I was living in Rutherford. I was under 15 years old. I was around 15, I think. And because we didn't go to the malls much, you know what I mean? Because I was hanging out with all my friends in Rutherford at that time. And I remember there was a Rutherford Music Exchange, and the Dr. Dre tape came out out of the Chronic, and that was one of my first hip hop album, cassettes that I ever bought. And I remember buying it, and the guy goes, "You sure you're 18?" I go, "Yeah, I'm positive I'm 18." Really, I'm 14, 15 years old buying, the explicit sign cassette tape there. I'm like, yeah, I'm old enough. I bought it. I had to hide it from my parents because I didn't want them to know I bought such a tape at that point before CDs became a thing. And that was the true. That's when I started going to the hip hop phase a little bit more in the 90s. I started listening to more hip hop, and and I loved it though. You know what I mean? But I was still listening to the Bon Jovis, the Metallicas, but I wasn't as heavy as I was into the hip hop at that point.
Now, of course, being the cassette generation, how often would you just sit down with your collection and boil down into mixtapes for yourself?
I would actually do it almost all the time, especially when I heard TV, when MTV, and I couldn't find the songs on a tape or anything. I would put my speaker near the TV, blast the TV, record it. And I'll tell you, it was some of the best recordings I had. And, it was, I guess you could say, the Napster way of the 80s. It was. No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jason.
I was about to say, like how much are people missing today from like the days of, like, again, up here in Canada, it's Much Music. Down there for you guys, it would have been MTV or even VH1. Right. Sitting there with the VCR ready to record for whatever video came on at the time, and hoping that you didn't cut it off.
Oh my God, I could tell you countless hours watching MTV trying to figure out. When I remember there was one Saturday you could figure out the rotation from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. because that's the same rotation they'll play. And you're trying to remember, all right, what time? It's 7:03. Okay, so at 11:03, this is when the song will come up. So I hit record. And of course, you miss it by like a second or two, and you're like, oh. Then you're trying to remember at 3 o'clock, it was the cool thing at that point. VHS tapes, cassette tapes. And I mean, before CDs came.
Oh yeah,
even laser disc before DVDs. So VHS tapes were the way to go, and tape decks. So that was something that was awesome. I remember having my yellow Sony Walkman with the Mega Boost button on there, and I loved it.
I still have one. It works.
Do you really?
Oh,
that's awesome.
It was to the point where I went to, now it's the Source, but it's basically what Radio Shack was. Got like an AC adapter for it just so I didn't have to keep putting batteries into it. So yes, I do awesome. Have a working yellow Walkman. But coming from the MTV generation, and being as much a lover of music as you are of movies, how important were music videos to you growing up?
They were actually pretty important because there's some life lessons in some of those songs. You look at some of these videos, they tell a story. In the 80s, it was all about the glam hair, the rock and roll life of like Motley Crue, Metallica, and all of them. And then, the early 90s was the hip hop age, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Warren G. So you get the White Sox cap, which I used to own one, even though I was a Yankee fan, and mid 90s became the grunge with Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder with Pearl Jam. And then 2000 music, I saw a turning point around the 2000, like 2005. I'm going to say I saw a turning point where the hip hop music didn't have the same message as it was back in the 90s. That's why we were saying I felt the 90s were the golden era of hip hop. The hip hop now, I do like T.I., I do like 50 Cent, Eminem, true artists now that are representing the 2000s, but it was a different message now than it was then. And, I don't know, I guess I'm not a big fan of what some of the music is being represented now than I was back in the day. So, but I will listen to it. I will give it a shot. I'm not going to say no to anything because sometimes you get a catchy tune. I'll even say it now. Justin Timberlake, when he came out solo, I didn't think I was going to like some of his songs. And my God, the guy could sing tremendously.
And he took it all like in stride. Like I remember when he was up here for I think it was the SARS Fest concert, when SARS was the thing. And like, people were like, he was on the same bill as AC/DC. Like it was just such a weird mishmash of talent, and people were booing him. People were absolutely booing him because all they wanted was AC/DC. And right. I still remember, like in the post interviews, he came out there and said, you know what, if I came to this show, I'd boo me too, because I'd want to see AC/DC. It was just almost like this, not taking himself too seriously, which actually made it even easier to like him.
Yeah, and he came out with some really great tunes, though. Especially with his breakup with Britney Spears at that point. He's done a lot of collaborations too. If you look at it, Pharrell, he did a collaboration. Timberland, he's done a collaboration. I think he's done a couple of collaborations with some rock bands too. And some of his performances are unreal. I know he did a Super Bowl performance, I think twice or 3 times already. And he's just an incredible, talented young man. And, and even as he's gotten older, there's one song with Chris Stapleton that I actually enjoyed very much. And I was like, wow, I never thought he would. I know he's a country guy growing up, but to hear what Chris Stapleton is unreal, and it works. And that's talent right there. That's natural talent.
Now, you say he's talented, but can you, find it in your heart to forgive him for The Love Guru? Because that was just one.
That's a horrible movie.
As a sports fan, a music fan, and a movie fan, how can you forgive him for The Love Guru?
You know what? For the talented other movies that he has, that's his D movie. There you go. He's got other good movies he's been in. That was his D movie. So he could put that one under the carpet.
Between that and the really bad version of the Joker at the end of that movie, that was... Yeah,
that was bad. Yeah, I think at one point I turned it off and then I said I'll watch the rest of it later, which I think I ended up doing an hour later.
Is there an actor or an actress or a singer or a musician that has appeared as an actor in a movie that you just sat there and said, okay, if they ever quit this, they should be in the movies permanently?
Wow. Justin Timberlake was one of them that was surprised. Besides The Love Guru. He's been in a couple of movies. There was one with Mila Kunis that I think he did a great job. I just can't remember the name of the movie. He did a movie with her, which I thought was really good. It was
Friends with Benefits?
Yes, Friends with Benefits. That's the one. Sometimes I remember the movies, but sometimes the names slip my mind. And that was a true good movie, seeing him as a singer. And that portrayed him to be a very good actor right there, because you're talking Mila Kunis, a A-list celebrity female, Woody Harrelson, another A-list phenomenal actor, and you're doing a New York City, LA, East Coast, West Coast movie about him. You know what I mean? So for me, that was a surprising thing. Sports figures, Michael Jordan in Space Jam I thought he was great in that movie. It looks like he looked a bit uncomfortable a couple times in the movie, but seeing him and Larry Bird and Bill Murray in the movie was one of my favorites. I love Space Jam for that. No, I will not see the new one. That's a whole nother issue with that one.
So sometimes don't remake the classics.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many, but to tell. But seeing some of these guys act and sing, David Hasselhoff is another one. I mean, he is huge in Germany. The guy can sing. I mean, granted, he sings in German and some of the English songs too. But I look at him, I always loved him in Knight Rider and Baywatch. I grew up on those shows. Dukes of Hazzard and Airwolf. And I'll tell you, I still laugh and I go, wow, he could actually sing somewhat, because in the end of Baywatch, he was singing that song, the ending credit song. That's his voice.
Now,
that's his voice.
I do have to mention to our listeners that if you have never witnessed the David Hasselhoff Hooked on a Feeling music video,
oh my God,
it is the most, I don't quite know how to describe it, experience, but you may never see, him the same way again. But then there's another one who, has basically stopped taking himself so seriously and just, embraced, embrace the Hoff, as you will, like, and everything that kind of comes with it.
Yeah, and he's doing a great job. I know he did an interview with Kelly Clarkson not too long ago, and me being a fellow huge Knight Rider fan, which I still watch the show on Stars and on Charge whenever I can get a chance. I always loved that show, and they're saying that there's a possible reboot movie or a reboot with him in it as possibly the new Devin Miles, and bringing up a new Michael Knight or a different name. So I'm kind of curious to see how that will go. If that does get into production, I would kind of love to see it.
I'd be curious, like being in that, rather than being the actual action star, but being more in the mentor role, that might actually kind of work out well. But getting back to the movies and soundtracks, is there any point where you can sit there and say the song made the movie?
Yes, I can name one. I can name actually a few, but one that sticks out in my mind was Red the movie. The bicycle movie with Crew Jones, and this is about his life. And there's a couple of songs that I felt that made the movie. And the beginning of the song was called Break the Ice. I forgot the name of the band. Was the perfect entrance because you could see the guys doing bicycle tricks. One of my favorite, and actually one of my also good friends, Dave Kondick, is a huge movie buff with that movie. He loves that movie just like as much as I do. And when they were doing the bicycle boogie with the song Send Me an Angel by Real Life, okay. It made the movie. It made that whole scene. It made it magical. And, for a bicycle movie, you know what I mean? And that was a B movie too, they were calling it. And it's becoming to be a, what's the good word? Not click, but a
cult classic.
Cult classic. Thank you. Yes. Cult classic movie now. Like Gleaming the Cube and BMX Bandits. Those are all cult classics now. Growing up, watching all those movies. But I felt like Rad was one of them. Definitely another one was, I think, Roadhouse. They had They had the blind singer. Even though he was a one-hit wonder, he had some great songs. Even though some of them might be covers, he could sing so well for a blind guy too, and play a guitar.
Which is interesting because, of course, the Jeff Healey band, they're a Toronto band, and they were big enough up here. So for us to see them in Roadhouse, it was like, oh, Jeff Healey band's in a Patrick Swayze movie in the 80s. This was really cool, right? And he was a phenomenal musician, like absolutely, like their cover of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, like it's just, haunting.
Unreal.
And he's a phenomenal guitarist. If you've ever had a chance to, like, to our listeners, if you ever have a chance to sit down and actually listen to the Jeff Healey band, beyond what you saw in Roadhouse, you'll be, if you like blues rock, you're going to love it.
Yeah, I know they did a VH1 actually special on them, and I'm surprised it did not become a bigger hit in the U.S. I thought they were a talented band. I wish they came out with more stuff. It was just unreal. You know what I mean? That they were not as big as they thought that they should have been. They were, I'd say, an underrated band.
It is interesting that we have some bands up here that, for one reason or another, they never make it huge down in the States. They could be huge up here, like the Tragically Hip. Mm-hmm. The Tragically Hip is basically, or at least was, Canada's house band. Okay. And they would, I think they played like, it was Woodstock 94, Woodstock 99, one of the two. And it's like, open like the second day or something like that.
I think it was 99.
Yeah.
I believe it was 99. I remember that. But again, it's amazing.
For two countries that are very close together to have like some, I mean, like not every band is going to be like Rush and like just be worldwide. Not every band is going to be Nickelback or, every singer going to be Celine Dion or Bryan Adams, but, when you have a band like that, to not, at least cross over as much, at least as here, it's always kind of interesting to see sometimes. But now let's come to the point where we get to you. And we ask the big question of the podcast. So if you, Alex Gomez, had to introduce yourself to a total stranger, but instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Alex, how you doing?" Listen to Playlist Wars, you hand them a mixtape, and on that tape are songs that tell the story of you. What songs are on that tape, and why are those songs there?
So the first one, as I would say it on my show, track one, the mix CD. It's actually Bon Jovi, "Wanted Dead or Alive."
Oh, great song.
It's a great song. First of all, the entrance of the song is so awesome, and it's so iconic. And best of all, seeing him live 3 or 4 times, it was great. So growing up, playing sports like soccer, I didn't get into the big football because I was a little too big. So soccer ended up being my first love for a while till I reached high school. And wasn't loved very much in the soccer field because either I was playing goalie or defense. So I felt like I was actually wanted dead or alive on the soccer field no matter what. They wanted me out of the game or they were trying to hurt me. So growing up, it was probably my number one song to open with. And truly a masterpiece by Bon Jovi too in the 80s. And I go on to track 2, which helped me out a lot. Linkin Park, "Somewhere I Belong." And this is where I was telling you earlier on the show about my dad. And my father, unfortunately, he passed away very young. He was only 53. Love him to death, and I miss him, especially with the day I got married, introducing my 2 kids into the world, and now tomorrow, Father's Day. For me, this is kind of a big thing, and and I always celebrate it. But the one song from Linkin Park was "Somewhere I Belong," because when I lost my dad, I didn't know where I fit anymore. I felt like I lost my way a lot. And hearing this song and having Brian actually and my buddy Red at that point and a couple other friends helped me out finding where I really started beginning to believe was where I belong was with a bunch of my friends. And they helped me guide me to a good life where I'm at now. And I respect everybody who's been there for me from 2001 all the way till now when everything happened with me. So it happened at the worst time of my turning 21, turning 22, my partying years. But at some point you had to step up and become a man, and with that song, it was a major help at that time. And track 3, and like I said, I'm going to throw some surprises.
Nice.
Track
I'm looking
3,
forward to it.
I am going with Tom Petty.
Nice.
For my track 3. "You Got Lucky." For me, that song means a lot because I felt like I met my match in my wife. And I felt like I was the lucky one, not her, getting her. And she is the true love of my life. She's a big supporter of mine. She helps me in every way I can. And she's a big supporter of the podcast. And she's the mother of my 2 children who I truly love tremendously. And I can't see myself without those 3 ever. So that's a big one for me. Track 4 for me would be AC/DC's "Thunderstruck." Growing up, being a football player, now we're talking my high school days, when we had CD players now, mixed CDs. This song, I was one of those songs that I could, Angus with the guitar riff of the opening of the song. I don't know, for some reason it put me in a zone and try to picture the game, try to hear the song, and then sometimes I sing it on I was a lineman, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. Once in a while I keep singing I hear that song, "You Just Been Thunderstruck," and that's something I would say when I put somebody onto the ground, and I'm like, "You just got thunderstruck, buddy," and I would walk away laughing. And that's just part of my life right there, was just an awesome part of my life, and I can't thank my teams back in the day and my coaches who helped me get better and everything in life, so that's always been a big part of it. Track 5, I talked about it earlier, was my first true tape deck, Dr. Dre, "Nothing But a G Thing." This is the golden stage of hip-hop for me in the early 90s. I did have a White Sox hat. Even though I was a Yankee fan, I represented the Yankees as best as I could at those times. And it was just a true great song. It was just about living life, you know what I mean? Of course, I didn't do some of the stuff that they did in the video, but just living life, it was the best way I could put it on that. Track 6, I went with Jay-Z and Linkin Park. "Points of Authority" and "99 Problems."
That was awesome.
Probably one of the best hip-hop rock band mashups I've ever seen in my life. And hearing Jay-Z rap to "Points of Authority" with 99 Problems and Chester and them doing it was just unreal. Brings me back to driving, getting my, a little over 19 years old when this came out, 20 years old, and just enjoying life because I loved driving fast. My love for cars. I would love to drive fast. I had an Integra at that point, or I think it was No, yeah, it was an Integra because I got into a car accident prior, so I had to use my dad's car for a little bit. But it was a stick shift, and I was having way too much fun with that car. So it brings me back to that. Track 7, going back with another Tom Petty song, "Into the Great Wide Open." Probably one of my favorite clear your mind, enjoy life songs. I look at the video, I think of the music, I think of the lyrics, and you know what? It's something where I got too much going on. I'll go in the car, I'll blast this up, and then just drive and sing it to the top of my lungs, even though I'm horrible. But it was one of those songs that was part of my list. Track 8 was Creed with arms wide open. Sorry, I couldn't even say it correctly. This song is pretty important to me because this is where my 2 children were born. Welcoming into the world, being a father for the first time with my daughter first was the scariest thing ever. Seeing my wife's happiness and seeing my in-laws and seeing my mom and my dad looking down on us, I could tell everyone was excited to have my daughter around, and she is truly a breath of fresh air. She is very smart. She is very convincing to get her way. Not with me, even though she's daddy's little girl. I just told her, I go, I love you. You can't convince me. I wrote the book on this. So she laughs, and welcoming my son too. Now he's turning a year in August, and seeing him grow up right now has been truly, truly a blessing. So I'm happy to be a father of 2, and that's it. I'm done. 2 is enough for me, but I am thankful for them every single day of my life. And track 9, I'm actually going to go a little dance music here. Swedish House Mafia. Don't You Worry, Child.
Okay.
Something that at that time, my wife was my fiance / girlfriend. For some reason, anytime we were in the car, this song played. Don't know why. It was just one of those timings, I think. If it was XM radio, Z100, KTU at that time, this song would come up, and we would just sing the song and just enjoy life, and just sing it, and just not to worry about anything. And track 10, this means a lot more than anything, and it's actually off my U2 episode, and I talked about it, and it's Beautiful Day. It was my music montage to my wedding to my wife. And to be honest with you, we got married in July. My anniversary is coming up on July 11th. And July is usually a hot month in New Jersey. It's usually humid, sweating, and you want to go into air conditioning all day. So wearing a tuxedo and a wedding dress for us, we were like, why? But it ended up being the most beautiful day ever. No humidity, 80s, perfect day, no overcast. And it was truly a blessing getting married to my best friend at that point. And I could not end my soundtrack the best way. The best way I know it was that song.
Well, we are recording this, as you mentioned, the day before Father's Day. So happy early anniversary to you too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I do have to ask, because you are a New York Rangers fan.
Yes.
So if you had a choice between seeing a Rangers game at Madison Square Garden or seeing a concert at Madison Square Garden, which would you rather?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I've never seen a concert in MSG yet. So I'm going to have to go with the Rangers game.
Okay.
I am trying to see if next year or if this year if Billy Joel plays a concert back at MSG. That would be my true inauguration of going into a concert at MSG. I've been to the Continental Arena, the Brendan Byrne Arena, the Izod Center, which is the same 3 places in one name. They changed it 3 times. The Prudential Center, Stone Pony. But I hear having a concert at MSG is nothing else. But watching a New York Rangers hockey game in MSG, I think you can't beat that anywhere. I mean, there's only certain places you could do that. Boston's one, Toronto's another. And those 3 would be a top, where I would love to go see a game with the Rangers. But seeing a game live at MSG is just so unreal for me. I've gone 4 times in my entire life. One was the 94 Stanley Cup Game 7 game with my dad.
Wow.
So you were there. I was there. We weren't supposed to be there, but we were there. And let me tell you, best sight me and my dad ever had. And my wife surprised me several years later with my first Ranger game against the Washington Capitals, against Ovechkin and Lundqvist being my favorite goaltender of all time. I mean, I'm loving Sheturkin now, but Lundqvist was my Richter, Lundqvist, and Sheturkin. I mean, those are my three goaltenders I've been watching for so many years as a Rangers fan growing up, and Van Viesbroek too. I'm never going to forget those guys. So for me, watching a game at MSG is so big, but I'm looking forward to the one day that I'm going to hear a concert at MSG, and I cannot wait.
For anyone who is sitting at home, listening to you and, has their own ideas, whether it be to start a podcast or to start any kind of creative content kind of thing, what advice would you give to them?
Wow. That's a good question. Make sure what you're going to do is you're going to like it, love it. Never mind like it. Make sure you're going to love it. Make sure you're going to be committed to it because it is a time-consuming thing. Brian forewarned me when we were starting this venture. It is a lot of work. It takes time. You can't rush these things, and this is why when I threw the idea like in November of last year, and a few months later it came about, it took time because I want to make sure I was ready for it. I bought as you can see here on the screen, I bought my Snowball mic for $55 off Amazon. I got a gaming earpiece here, and I have my laptop that I'm on right now. And I went to work, and no regrets. And for anybody who's starting it and you feel like you know how to do it and you can edit and everything, go and do it. Follow your dreams. Right now, being a podcaster with my best friend, never imagined it would happen, but we did it. We've always joked around about it, but we never got to do it until now. And I'm telling you, it's been a blast. And if you could find that right partner, like you hear in the entrance of my introduction of Playlist Wars, we are a dynamic duo. And being a huge Batman fan growing up too, that's how I got that whole thing, the dynamic duo, and it's just been awesome. And anybody who wants to try it, I say try it. Make sure you're happy, because when we put out the first 4 episodes, we did it before we launched, and we wanted to make sure we got it right. And we listened to it. We laughed so hard because of all the chronology, all the good stuff that we could do together. And we're rolling with it, and we're so excited, and we can't wait to see how much more exposure it can get. And that's something we're looking forward to.
Nice. Well, to all of our listeners, we're at the end of the podcast now. So now's a good time, if you want to bail out now, to go ahead and pop on over and listen to Playlist Wars. Alex, thank you so much for popping on to the show tonight.
No problem, Jason. I had a great time. Thank you for having us. Just really quick, I just want to mention where they can find us too, if it's okay.
Absolutely, yes.
You can find us on our website at playlistwarspodcast.com. Twitter is Playlist Wars, and our Instagram is Playlist Wars Podcast. You can find me and Brian on Twitter under Brian Colburn for Brian, and for me at Gomez, and you'll find us there. And we're looking to hear from everybody, man. We're having a great time. It's like a party in a podcast is what I'm calling it.
And you can be sure to hear the Playlist Wars podcast on all your audio streaming services, including Good Pods. If you're not, if you haven't downloaded Good Pods as an app yet, definitely do, because it is phenomenal for discovering new podcasts and getting into groups and basically experiencing the podcast, as in its own kind of app environment. It's phenomenal. To all of our listeners, thank you so much. This is the Major Mixtape Podcast. If you're listening to us on an audio streaming service, you can watch this whole video over on YouTube. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can download this on any audio streaming service and listen to it on the go. This has been the Major Mixtape Podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Alex, again, thank you so much. We will see you all next time.
Take care, guys. Thank you.